Hey, fellas, welcome back to We Got Balls. And Chris, as we recorded in our last episode, we were talking about objectification. We said we'd do one for objectifying girls and one for objectifying guys. And so I couldn't help but think about a conversation we had over the weekend with a group of guys that were here.
Who's Scott? I'd go gay.
For?
I don't know. Find out when you come back.
Welcome to We Got Balls, real, raw, masculine sex talk with Chris Inman and Scott Cohn. Here we go.
Hey guys, just wanted to let you know there's some exciting things coming your way. We just recently finalized our next retreat, which will be in Nashville, Tennessee, December 5th through the 8th. You can check out registration in the show notes below. There will also be another retreat in January in Gulf Shores, Alabama. Both of these events are going to be live and in person, and there's limited availability. So please make sure to check that out and sign up as soon as possible. And also, thank you so much for supporting this channel. We've just recently passed 3,000 subscribers on YouTube, and we're super excited about the future. And we want to partner with you. We want to let you help us get to the next level to continue to spread this message of kindness and curiosity around sexuality for men throughout the English-speaking world. So be on the lookout in coming weeks for ways that you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and support us and continue to push the We Got Balls message out into the world. So thanks so much, and we'll see you soon.
Hey guys, we're back with We Got Balls, and we were just talking about who would you go gay for?
Oh, well, dude, I'll tell you what. I actually have a story about this. It's interesting. In the darkest moments of my marriage, when I really thought things were falling apart, I really got into a phase of looking at gay porn, and my type of looking at gay porn was I'm always looking for this in all the porn that I've ever consumed. I'm looking for two people who are enjoying each other, and really, it's not about muscles necessarily. So I'm like a Ryan Reynolds kind of guy. I want a fun-loving, kind of fit. You know, it's like this dude would be awesome to hang out with. He would tell a ton of jokes, and we could just hang out and have some drinks and just enjoy. Like, he sounds like a party that would just never stop. And it's not so much about the sexual experience as it is the mutuality and camaraderie of being with another guy. Like, that really is what's arousing for me. And I found myself being, attracted to that in just a really desperate season of my life. I'm not gay. I'm not same-sex attracted, but I wrote in a journal, I can understand how people can absolutely would go here and have a lot of empathy because of that.
Well, where this intro came from was this weekend. I had a bunch of some of my closest friends over to celebrate my birthday, and we got to talking about my best friend had just seen the Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool Wolverine movie. And he goes, man, if this is my best friend, he's not same-sex attracted, has never struggled in that area, but he goes, I would go gay for Hugh Jackman.
Is it because of the show tunes? Is it the music, or he just likes the way he looks?
I think he likes his physique. I think he likes his personality. I really didn't quiz him on that because I think everybody that sparked a conversation about who their hot guy fantasy. Now, this is a group of guys, right? So you have to be very secure in yourself, or you have to be fairly safe in the relationship with the other guys to be able to say, well, if I could do something with a dude, it would be that particular dude. And what is that saying about our hearts? But also on this topic of objectifying men, what is your thoughts when you hear another guy say, man, I think that guy's really hot? What do you think about that kind of statement, Chris?
Yeah, for me, I take it at face value. I'm a respecter of all kinds of physiques and different dudes. And so for me, and I think this is kind of where this I'd go gay tagline gets interesting, is there's nothing sexual about that statement. That guy's really hot. Like, I don't want to put his penis in my mouth, have my penis in his mouth. I don't want to do back rubs, massages. I don't want to do anything that involves sexual touch, because that's not my arousal template. Again, like I said earlier, I get why some guys would want to do that. So, but for me, I'm looking at his body. And I found myself, especially as I get older, looking at men's bodies going, man, that guy's got some nice pecs. Or, man, I wish I could have a back that kind of rippled like he does. Or he has a really chiseled jaw. I got this rounded, doughboy, kind of Southern boy jaw. And, man, I would love to have that nice angular jaw that just, like Hugh Jackman has. I mean, it's the reason he's Wolverine is because he looks like he could, basically cut you in two with his chin. He's just very masculine in his facial features. So I see that as that guy's hot as like a compliment. It's almost envious of wanting to consume some of what he has so that I can be like that.
Yeah, so that's an interesting dynamic that we were talking about before we started recording, where maybe this idea of objectifying other males is driven a lot by envy, not so much by kind of the sexual lust, or maybe there's times where it's driven by both. But if you think about, a guy that's really sexually attracted to women, that's his arousal template. It's not that he's really drawn to a woman because he's envying her body in the sense of, I wish I had breasts like that, or I wish I had a butt like that. And yet I think there is so much of this kind of what you might want to call it kind of normal comparison between guys wanting to know, that guy's got a really beautiful body. He's got a great physique. He's worked really hard at it. There's something admirable about the time that a guy would put into getting that kind of a physique. Some guys are just naturally more handsome than other guys, right? Some guys are taller than other guys, but there are these features that we look at in other men. And as men, I think we're always sizing ourselves up in comparison to other men, right? Because go ahead.
So,
you're going to say,
yeah. So is that the question? Am I enough? Is that what that question is asking, whether it's sexual or not? Is I'm looking, I mean, especially penis size, right? I mean, if we're doing comparisons, it is about, am I enough? Do I fit into a category where I'm at least average or above, or am I not enough?
Yep. I think so much of it is driven around that. And so there's an interesting dynamic between objectifying men objectifying other men versus men objectifying women. One seems to be driven more by like kind of what you would call typical lust. I want that. I have to have that. That's my object of desire. The other one is driven more by, I wish I was that.
Yes. So Scott, I think part of this is when we have this aspect, thinking about those desires, we need to go back into our arousal template dynamics. We've got repetition, reversal, and re-identification. And we have those three things there. I'm thinking about this attraction to guys in that aspect. There really could be like, I've had experiences with other guys that I want more of. I want to have a connection. I want to be one of the most fond experiences of my teenage years was playing football on Sunday afternoons. And we'd all take our shirts off and we're out there sweating our butts off, playing tackle football on the field right by the elementary school. And man, that was so much fun, so connective, so enjoyable, the competition, the play, and there was no sexual attraction to it, but I would go back in a heartbeat and have that experience again. And there's a sense in that really gave me a sense of belonging and connection, right? The reversal of that would have been when I was in high school and played football. And instead of being one of the teammates, I was the guy that everybody picked on because I was the smallest. I got locked into the football lockers. Hey, Chris, pull your shirt up. They wanted to punch my shoulder right there so they could give me a frog, and they hit it just right and it would pop up and they're like, oh, look at you. I was the little toy that they'd play with. So now when I walk into a locker room, I want to be the guy that's accepted and included. And frankly, I don't abuse anybody, but want to make sure that everybody's a part of the team. And then the re-identification of that is, what does it mean to truly be a man for me? For me, it was about a position of power. But as I'm getting older, I want to revisit that experience where my body looks masculine. I'm aging. I'm in my late 40s. And so I want to get to a place of doing exercises that I can look in the mirror and go, that's a good looking man. So all those things are desiring an aspect of masculinity. And I could take any of those things and sexualize it and make it an arousal template. And it would be completely in the vein of my desires of fulfilling the am I enough question.
Yeah, and particularly they can be sexualized because each of those elements, if I don't feel like I measure up, if I don't feel like I belong, if I don't feel like I'm a part of, or I feel rejected by a lot of the guys, and I don't have what it takes from a physical standpoint, that creates a lot of emotional pain in my life. So where do we go to reverse emotional pain? We go to physical pleasure because it's easy, right? It's quickly available and it works. And so that's why I can then take this idea of objectifying another man's body. I combine that with masturbation, whether I'm just fantasizing about his body or I'm using pornography, but it's a way for me to escape that sense of not being enough just momentarily and feel good about connecting with masculinity, whether it's within myself or with another man's body. And there you go. It's a reversal. It's repeating maybe dynamics from my past, but in a way that reverses them. But it also helps me achieve this momentary, I identify as a man, right? And you know, a lot of the research that we've done on this in the past that we've talked about is the number one category of pornography that's watched by gay identified men is not gay porn. It's straight porn. So men who identify as gay want to connect with another man's masculinity. Why? Why?
That's a great question, Scott. So let's chew it up for a second. What is it about a man who is strong, virile, desirable, and able to create? I mean, you think about that in the ultimate end of sexuality is pleasure and creation, right? I find joy and beauty and pleasure in engaging with another human being who is different than me, but that'd be with a man with a woman. And so I'm aroused, I'm attracted to the man in that scenario. I want to be that guy who can be desired and looked at and attuned to in that way so that I can feel alive. I can feel like a man. I'm strong in my masculinity. And the struggle with that, I think, in guys' heads is it's so hard to see that objectively. I can see that as I'm listening to guys' stories and hear their insecurities about what they're attracted to and the porn they watch and how often they do it and how they act out with it. And I can be compassionate and curious with that. But man, it's really hard for me to hold that in my own desires.
Yeah. And I think part of the reason is because it's almost impossible to see things in your own story. You can tell your story, but that doesn't mean you're going to make the connections to it. You need other witnesses to be with you in those stories to be able to help you see how what you're doing now in terms of your sexual fantasies or your porn usage habits or whatever your sexual struggle is connected to something that's happened in the past where there was a wound. So how does this wound come in? It's some sense of not being good enough, of not measuring up to what I am supposed to be like as a man. So what I'm going to do is take that then and fantasize about a way to reverse that. Because what do we fantasize about? We don't fantasize about things that are what we're experiencing in real life. It's the opposite of what we're experiencing, right? So if I feel like I don't fit in with the other guys, if I'm not sporty, if I'm not, 6'4" and built like, Hugh Jackman, there's something about me that's deficient as a man. And if that message gets reinforced over and over and over, and people call me gay and queer and sissy and faggot and pussy over and over and over again, it's going to damage me. It's going to damage my view of myself. So, and it's not coming out of, well, I'm just going along life and these bad things happen and it damages me. No, I'm going into that already feeling like I'm not enough because there wasn't a lot of connection with my father maybe, or other men as a little boy.
And in that, Scott, and I feel the pain in what you're sharing because it's so hard to undo that lack of not getting enough masculinity. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm learning in my own journey is that masculinity has to be embodily given. Like I have to get it from another man. Like I don't, and you talked about this before in human development. Comes a time around 10, 11, 12, 13 years old where a boy leaves the maternal side of his relationship and starts seeking out, what does it mean to be masculine, to be a man? And when you don't have that in your story, in your experience, and maybe you try to get it from scouting or athletics or a grandparent, but it just doesn't fulfill the need. And maybe even there's a father that's physically present, but emotionally unable to pass that on. There is this emptiness, which makes total sense that you would want to fill that sexually with a strong and very powerful masculine energy, which porn is, especially men in porn. They present the height of a masculine energy.
Yeah. Let's think about for a second what we actually see as admirable or what we idolize, right? When we're think about it in terms of worship, we're drawn to worship that which is greater than us. I don't worship I don't worship a Coke can. I worship God because God is greater than me. So I'm drawn to that which is greater, something that creates a sense of awe and wonder in me. Well, if I don't feel like I'm good enough as a man and I want to go seeking those attributes outside of me because I don't feel like I possess them, I'm going to go to a man who represents masculinity in a greater way than I do, which is where we're back to kind of where we started, I'd go gay for comes from. And it's really funny in the culture, but when somebody answers that question and they go, well, I'd go gay for this guy or I'd go gay for that guy, I think the curious question to ask is, why that guy? Right. What is it about him that makes you feel like he's the ideal version of a man?
So can we go there ourselves?
Yeah.
Maybe not in particular, but in the characteristics of it. I think it'd be very helpful for the guys listening. So what do Scott and Chris want in masculinity that they don't feel like they possess? So let you go first.
I'll just be honest about I'd go gay for it because I've been open about my story here. But yeah, and this comes from a funny story from my son, where I'm having a conversation with him about, my struggles with same-sex attraction. And he goes, wait a second, Dad, are you saying you're gay, or are you Henry Cavill gay? Because I would be gay for Henry Cavill. and,
way to go, buddy.
Yeah.
You picked a good one there.
He was kind to me and he picked the right guy because that is my ideal of a really masculine man, particularly the Henry Cavill that was in Man of Steel. And I grew up kind of idolizing or seeing Superman as my ideal man. Most boys, when they grow up, they're idolizing pictures of masculinity that are kind of prototypical, like policeman, army guy, my dad, baseball player, football player, so on. My idols were Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, big muscles, and so Henry Cavill comes along and I look at him and I'm like, man, that guy's a specimen of a man. Hairy chest, big muscles, handsome, strong. He plays Superman, for goodness sake, in the movie. And do I see myself as that? No, I don't see myself as that. But I see that's what I'm supposed to be like. Where does that supposed to come from? From my comic books, right? I had a fantasy vision of what a man was like, portrayed over and over from the time I was in 4th grade up until I get into puberty. And then that vision of masculinity becomes the thing that I'm really drawn to and attracted to. And my arousal template gets solidified around that particular type of guy that has those attributes. So that's my story about that. What's arousing to me in a man? What's yours?
So, well, if you don't mind, could I be curious with you on that? So what is it about the character of a superhero? What does a superhero do for you that it feels like life?
They're kind in protecting people that are weaker than they are.
Yes.
They stand up against injustice, harm.
Yes.
You know, you think about Superman had Jimmy Olsen. Jimmy Olsen is just a kid, and yet Superman's there protecting him, caring for him. And so I think it's driven around a lot of that. They're strong and can I summarize it? They're strong and good.
Sure. Can I tell you what else I hear? They're also tender caretakers. That they're strong for sure, and they can handle any kind of evil, and there's nothing that can come against them that can't be defeated. And yet, they take care of the Jimmy Olsens of the world.
Yep.
They're able to be with people who might otherwise be intimidated, but with that superhero, they're safe.
And I grew up in a situation where I wasn't always safe with my dad at times, and I was bullied by other boys, and you can see why I'd be drawn to that. I want strong, good, safe men in my life. And so that should be arousing to anybody, right? That should make you feel alive, because that's what you were intended to get. And so much of this goes back to what turns us on really turns out to be the things we should have gotten that we didn't. And we then sexualize them to try to find some desperate attempt to connect with that goodness that we should have had.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. So for me, I joked earlier that it was Ryan Reynolds. I love Ryan Reynolds. I think Ryan Reynolds is hilarious. I don't think I really want to be Ryan Reynolds.
So can I be curious about that with you?
Yeah.
Why is it this camaraderie, this kind of playfulness, why is that so attractive to you? What else is there about that?
Well, I think the reality in my own life is I've always wanted to belong and be with. As much of my childhood has been about surviving two very emotionally negligent parents who were kind of wrapped up in their own stuff. I mean, my mom, because of a mother who was mentally ill for all of her childhood and didn't allow her to develop as a caretaker and a nurturer, because she was surviving from 5 on. And my dad, because he had a very negligent father, an abusive father, who demanded perfection of him for any ounce of love. And so he became a workaholic and a survivalist from very young. So they get together and they have me. I'm the oldest, and I'm brought into this vacuum, emotional vacuum. So so there's two pieces. Part of it, yes, is the Ryan Reynolds piece, which is I want somebody to show up and to just be the life of the party that I felt like I've always had to be.
And invite you to it, right? Invite you into that.
Yeah. It's because I feel like if I was with him, I could just shut down and be. And there would be cool stuff going on. We'd go to Wrexham over in Wales and go see a soccer game. And then we go to what kind of, does he have vodka? We go to a gin tasting, we go shill for Mint Mobile. We just go all over the place. I mean, he was at the Olympics this past week. Saw him on TV with him and his wife. And this is a guy who, man, if I could hang with this dude, my schedule, my life would be full and I wouldn't have to worry about it.
I hear so much of, I'm looking for a man to invite me into adventure and play there.
100%. And so there's another piece to this too. You know what my favorite movie is?
What?
The Matrix.
The Matrix.
The Matrix. Keanu Reeves in The Matrix, and specifically Keanu Reeves as a person, if you follow a little bit about Keanu Reeves, is somebody that I want to be like. A brave, adventure-seeking, caretaking, yes. Lover of a man, yes. But he believes. He believes more than everyone else. And Keanu Reeves, if you know a little bit about him as a person, he has given and given and given and given and given and given and given. He does not take. He gives out of the generosity. Now, he's been extremely wealthy because of the projects he's been on. He's worked very hard to get there. But he is a generous man without acclamation. And that kind of giving and believing energy held with the playfulness is kind of what I want to experience in my life. And so I look to those guys and I want to be like them. I am envious of them. I long to connect in the way that they do. But because that's been, as you identified very clearly, that's been kind of the void of my childhood and my young adult years.
So what I heard in all of this, beneath both of our kind of I'd go gay for fantasies, is really good stuff. All of these are really beautiful attributes. Like, who wouldn't want to be that kind of a man or be connected to a man like that, have friendships with a man like that? And I think that's what it comes down to in the long run, is what we're really looking for when we objectify other men is we're looking for a model of what masculinity is, because we never really had it held before us. And, you know, for those of us that struggle with that sexual template, it gets eroticized as a way to alleviate the pain of never having that experience, where maybe that's not a particular struggle to you because of the way your arousal template's formed. But for all of us, it's a place, I think, to invite a lot more curiosity and kindness about, I wonder why that guy does turn me on, or I wonder why that particular person's is so arousing to me, rather than trying to shut it down with shame and scolding and you shouldn't. There's something really good and beautiful, as you've seen in all of this, beneath all of that. And I think that's the invitation that we're making to everybody, is be curious about what's beneath that. What's the deep longing of your heart underneath that desire?
So there's one more piece to this, Scott, that I think is important to note is, we use the word gay in the title for a reason. Because I think a lot of times when you hear that word, there is a weakness or a shame that's associated. I mean, the gay pride movement obviously is trying to dispel that, but especially in our circles, you use the word gay, you're like, oh, what? You'd go, what for that? And so I think that, as you just justifiably said, there is a longing and a desire that we want more masculinity in our lives. We're desperate for that. So how can a man who wants to add masculine energy, confidence, connection, purpose, strength, compassion, and all those strong ways that you can have it, how can a man move toward that in a way that doesn't push him into objectification?
I think the first thing is engage your stories and figuring out where you came to believe that you were deficient in your masculinity. What are the stories around that where you begin to feel less than, or you begin to feel like you're not a part of? And then engaging those in the company of other men who can bring you the things that you really need in that, engaging that story, kindness, care, connection. But then on top of that, working to build relationships with other men that are full of those things that you're really longing for. That goodness, that playfulness, that camaraderie, that sense of belonging. And so it's a multifaceted, it's not a one, here's the silver bullet for that, but it's more of a holistic approach and integrated across all these different dimensions of your developmental life, where you are now, your sexual template, all of that, and having a holistic approach to really coming to embrace the man that you were created to be.
And I think there's another piece to that kind of gets you to the story piece and to the engagement with other men piece, which we saw so bravely in the guys who showed up for the retreat a few weeks ago, which is you've got to act. I heard this great line, listened to a book, the antithesis of fear is hopeful action. So if I'm stuck in fear, the thing that I have to do to get myself out of anxiety or fear is act in a way that I believe can change my dynamic. Yeah. And every man at that retreat, even the ones who struggled mightily to get their stories out, engaged with hopeful action. They literally showed up in person. They took a risk to engage with guys. They took a risk to listen to stories. They took a risk to share their own story. And then they took a risk to believe that things might be different as a result. Well, guys, thanks for being with us in this conversation. There's plenty of ways that you can connect. Check the notes out below, how you can connect with us at successfulmen.com on our YouTube Live every Friday at 11 a.m. that you can engage with us and tell your story and ask questions. Links are below. Make sure you check that out. We'd love to have you right here on We Got Balls.
See you guys.
Don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. You can connect with Chris and with Scott at successfulmen.com.